President Trump is staring down brutal predictions ahead of the midterm elections. His golden age economy pitch fizzling with voters worried about an endless war and high prices. If you look at Truth Social, it might appear Trump has pivoted to 2028 and whether he might somehow be allowed to run for a third term. But at least one conservative commentator is urging him to take extreme measures to save the GOP this November.
If you declare a national security emergency as the president of the United States, they can't challenge it. It can only be overturned by a 2/3 vote of both houses of Congress. So if you do this in the next month, we will get photo ID, proof of citizenship, and a limit to mail-in ballots. And
let me just say that stranger things have happened. Okay, I'll leave it at that.
Let's go to Molly Jong-Fast, MS Now political analyst, New York Times contributing opinion writer, and host of the Fast Politics podcast, and Stuart Stevens, former Mitt Romney 2012 chief campaign strategist, now senior advisor to the Lincoln Project, and author of the 2020 book, It Was All a Lie, How the Republican Party Became Donald Trump. Welcome, guys. Good to see you. So to Trump's words there, Molly, have stranger things happened?
Yeah, I mean, look. There are small armies of very smart lawyers who are setting up to prevent stuff like this. And if Trump tries to do something like this, it will go through the courts and he will lose. But that does not stop Wayne Allen Root from suggesting it. I think what's notable about this is that Donald Trump is polling so poorly, the poorest polling in modern political history. Mm-hmm. And so he is trying to think creatively about winning the midterms, and winning should go in quotes.
So, Stuart, is the Trump effect ruining GOP chances for November? And has he maybe moved on to maybe envisioning himself for 2028, or is that just trolling?
That's trolling. I often think of myself as getting drafted in the first round of the NFL. It's not going to happen either. Look, these numbers like out of the latest Marquette poll are just staggering for Trump. His very favorable, which is really the only number that motivates voters, is 15%. His very unfavorable is 45%.
Wow.
Now, look, I'm a product of Mississippi Public Schools, but I think that's 3 times as bad. And those are really, really terrible numbers. And what's fascinating is the unfave of the Democratic Party and the Republican Party are pretty much the same. And that's why if I was in the Democratic Party, I would just shut up about the Democratic Party. Donald Trump is on the ballot. This is a referendum on Donald Trump. This is the simplest race I've ever seen. If you like the way things are going, vote for Republicans. If you don't, give the other people a chance. If you don't like it, vote them out. That's what should be the Democratic message. Keep it that simple, and you'll win big numbers.
So Molly, Trump is taking his fight over ballroom construction to the Supreme Court after a D.C. appeals court ruled Congress has exclusive authority over that. And Democratic Senator Sheldon Whitehouse said Trump actually joined the Kennedy Center virtual meeting and voted to reattach his own name to that property. Here is what regime change co-author Maggie Haberman told me. Let's watch this.
This is what he is interested in. He is interested in construction projects broadly. He is interested in reshaping the culture, and he is interested in leaving his name in a way that cannot be stripped down and off of buildings and out of sight the way it was after 2016 when he became president in Manhattan and then after he left Washington in 2021.
Is this why MAGA reelected him, to bulldoze his way to ballrooms? I mean, can he convince his supporters this is in their interest?
So we're 80 days from the midterms, right? And you think what Republicans want him to do is they want him to be laser focused on affordability. We heard Susie Wiles' team talk about this idea that he was going to be laser focused on affordability. So what do we see him doing? Laser focused on his legacy, his building projects, the ballroom, going to the Supreme Court for the ballroom. I mean, this is Marie Antoinette style stuff. And when you have Americans saying, why is gas $1 more a gallon than it was before? Why is there still this lettuce, this diarrhea lettuce sweeping through the country, right? People it's not this lettuce problem. You have all sorts of different problems. And you have a Trump who is just focused on building projects. And I have to tell you, I just don't see a world where this is a winning midterm message.
Stuart, Trump was also sued over his scheme to sell early access to White House and presidential social media posts to anyone who wants to pay his Truth Social company $100,000 a month. Here's what his former White House counsel, Ty Cobb, said about that.
This is a wholesale violation of the securities laws, selling presidential intentions and information in advance of the public receiving that information. That's at the heart of what the securities laws were designed to prevent. And the founders, if they thought this was ever going to happen, they would have said something to prevent it. I'm sure they never imagined that the country would be in the hands of someone as evil as this president, whose corruption is unprecedented, not just in America, but in history.
I mean, with the barrage of reported deals and government contracts tied to companies co-owned by the Trumps, will Republicans ever be able to recover from corruption questions?
Look, this is about the Republican Party. It's not just about Donald Trump. That's why I wrote a book, How the Republican Party Became Donald Trump. I haven't seen a lot of senators holding press conferences, Republicans holding press conferences and saying, this is outrageous. You're selling information that belongs to the United States people for personal gain, which is what it is. You just look at this at face value, and it's like Mr. Cobb says, it just reeks of corruption. But they go along with it. So when you go along with it, you're complicit, and that's what you become. And that really will stick with the Republican Party. This stuff becomes generational in impact, just as the image that Democratic Party was weak on foreign policy has stayed with the Democratic Party for generations. I think now that's changing. It's a huge opportunity for it to change. But this stuff doesn't go away when it's this egregious and you just change leaders, but you keep the people who supported them, which is why a lot of these people are going to lose their seats when they're up for re-election.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of elections, Molly, The Hill's reporting today that New York Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez leads the field for the Democratic presidential nomination on the two best-known betting markets, Kalshi and Polymarket. So while these are not official indicators by any means, how realistic are her prospects at this stage?
So what I would say about AOC is that she is a star, and she is taking up more and more oxygen in the American political universe, and that is good news. And what she's doing with freezing her eggs is something that a lot of women in their 30s are struggling with, fertility, and she's raising awareness for it, and she's talking about it in an honest way, and she's sharing what the experience is like, and she's destigmatizing fertility treatments, and that is incredibly cool. So is she good for America? I think she's quite good for America. And is she good for democracy? I think having electeds who give this kind of feminist message and do these kind of things in a very transparent way is extremely cool. So that, and I think since we're so many years from 2028, I think that is the best any of us can do at this moment.
Hey, Stuart, can Ocasio-Cortez win anti-Trump Republicans like yourself?
Yes. I mean, in a world in which Donald Trump can win Republicans, why not her win anti-Trump Republicans? Republicans ended up supporting somebody who talked in public about dating his daughter. Never thought that would happen, but it did. Do I think she's going to be the next president or the nominee? No, I don't. But I agree with Molly. The advantages that Democrats have is they have a lot of good candidates and they have a wide spectrum of opinions. And that's really what a party's supposed to be. Does that make offering a unified message more difficult? Yeah. We always got credit in the Republican Party for being good at message. We sort of were, but it also was a lot easier to be on message when you had a very homogeneous party. It's like putting on a concert for people that like the same kind of music. Not that hard. So I think Democrats are advantaged by this and having these kind of debates and having images like her, people like her out there. And that's why you have a primary. Weird stuff happens. Whatever we think is going to happen now is not going to happen. And it's just always the case.
Okay. Stuart and Molly, thank you so much. Stuart, real quick, which NFL team do you dream about playing for? I'm just curious. Which one is it?
The Green Bay Packers. Thank you. And I am open. I am available if you want to call.
Good to know. We'll pass that on. Okay, guys, thank you.